What if the fastest way to lose power is to explain yourself? Think about it. Every time someone questions you, every time someone misunderstands you, every time someone challenges your decision, you feel that pressure to clarify, to defend, to justify, to make sure they get it. But what if that instinct, that urgent need to be understood, is exactly what weakens your position? Tonight we're talking about something uncomfortable. Why the calmest man in the room rarely explains himself. Why silence unsettles insecure people. And why the more grounded you become, the less you feel the need to prove anything to anyone. This isn't about ego. It isn't about being cold. It's about emotional control. Because the truth is simple, and most people never learn it. The moment you stop explaining yourself from fear is the moment people start taking you seriously. Let's talk about why. There's a moment most people never notice, but it changes the entire dynamic of a room. You say something. Maybe it's an idea in a meeting. Maybe it's an opinion at dinner. Maybe it's a boundary in a relationship. And someone misunderstands you. Or worse, they challenge you. You feel it instantly. Your chest tightens. Your heartbeat shifts. Your voice speeds up without permission. And before you even think about it, you start explaining. You clarify what you meant. You defend your tone. You add context. You add logic. You add more words than you plan to, because silence feels dangerous. Silence feels like losing. But here's something uncomfortable. The calmest person in the room, the one who doesn't rush to explain, is usually the one holding the most power. Niccolò Machiavelli understood this long before modern psychology ever put language to it. He studied leaders. He studied conflict. He studied how people react under pressure. And beneath all his writing about strategy and influence was a quiet truth. Power is often preserved through restraint. Not loudness, not domination. Restraint. The calm man never explains himself, not because he's confused, not because he's weak, not because he doesn't care, but because he understands something most people don't. The more you explain, the more you reveal your need to be approved. And the moment people sense that need, they gain leverage over you. When you over-explain, you unconsciously say, "Please understand me." When you rush to defend, you signal, "Your opinion can destabilize me." And people, even good people, feel that shift. This isn't about being cold. It isn't about acting superior. It isn't about silence as punishment. It's about emotional control. When you don't rush to fill the silence, you communicate something powerful without saying a word. I am not shaken. And that steadiness changes everything. Think about the last time someone stayed calm while being questioned. They didn't panic. They didn't scramble. They didn't argue every detail. They listened. They paused. They responded briefly, or not at all. How did that feel? Strong, grounded, unbothered. Because real power rarely explains itself in a hurry. Tonight, we're talking about why silence is one of the most misunderstood forms of strength, and how to use it without becoming distant, passive, or emotionally unavailable. Because the man who never rushes to explain himself isn't hiding. He's choosing. And the man who chooses his response instead of reacting on impulse, he rarely loses his position, in the room, in the relationship, or in his own mind. Let's be honest. Most of us explain ourselves all day long, at work, in relationships, on social media, even with strangers who barely know us. You send a simple text. They respond hours later with a short reply. Suddenly, you're clarifying what you really meant. Your boss questions a decision. You start stacking reasons. You over-justify. You add context nobody even asked for. A friend seems distant. You over-explain your tone. You reassure. You soften everything. Why do we do this? Because explanation feels like safety. At a biological level, we are wired for belonging. Thousands of years ago, rejection from the group meant danger. So when someone misunderstands us today, even in a small way, our brain reads it as social threat. Your nervous system reacts. Your body shifts. You feel exposed. And your instinct says, fix it. How do we fix it? We talk more. We add details. We try to control the narrative. We try to make sure no one walks away with the wrong idea about us. But here's the paradox. The more you explain, the less mystery you carry. And the less mystery you carry, the easier you are to manage. When you constantly defend yourself, people learn something important about you. You are affected. And once someone knows what affects you, they know where your emotional buttons are. This is something Niccolò Machiavelli observed in leadership centuries ago. He noticed that rulers who constantly defended their choices didn't look transparent. They looked uncertain. Not because they were wrong, but because they were reactive. Reactive people are predictable, and predictable people are manageable. Think about a real-life situation. You're in a meeting. You present an idea you've worked on for weeks. Someone leans back and says, "I'm not sure that will work." Now watch the split. Person A immediately speeds up. They start explaining every angle. They defend every possible flaw. They talk over objections before they even fully land. Their voice gets tighter. Their energy shifts. Person B pauses. They hold eye contact. They nod slightly and say, "That's fair. Let's test it and see." Then they stop talking. Silence. No rush. No panic. No scramble for approval. Who feels stronger? It's not about intelligence. It's not about who prepared more. It's about who controls the emotional tempo of the room. When you don't chase validation, you create gravity. When you don't rush to close the tension, you expand it. And the person who controls the tempo controls perception. Perception, in most social situations, is power. Most people misunderstand silence. They think if you're quiet, you must be shy. If you don't argue back, you must be insecure. If you don't defend yourself immediately, you must be intimidated. But strategic silence is the opposite of weakness. It's discipline. It's the ability to feel the surge of emotion rising in your chest, the urge to interrupt, to correct, to defend, and choosing not to. That choice is not passive, it's controlled, and control requires strength. Let me tell you about someone I once observed closely. He worked in a high-pressure corporate environment where meetings felt more like debates than discussions. People interrupted each other, voices rose, ideas were challenged aggressively. Egos were always present. He was quiet, not withdrawn, not timid, just measured. When someone attacked his proposal, he didn't rush to protect it. When someone questioned his competence, he didn't fire back. He would listen fully. Sometimes he'd write something down. Then he'd look up and say calmly, "I understand your concern." No defensiveness, no sarcasm, no tension in his voice. And then he'd move on. At first, some people mistook his calm for softness. A few tried to test him repeatedly. But something interesting happened over time. Their energy never destabilized him. Months later, when leadership positions opened, he was promoted ahead of louder, more visibly assertive colleagues. Why? Because upper management saw what others didn't. He never escalated conflict. He never reacted impulsively. He never exposed insecurity under pressure. In tense environments, the calmest person becomes the psychological anchor, and anchors are rare. They stabilize teams. They lower emotional volatility. They create trust. That kind of presence is valuable. This aligns with something Niccolò Machiavelli understood about leadership. When rulers displayed too much visible emotion, anger, panic, defensiveness, they made themselves predictable. And once you're predictable, you're controllable. If someone knows exactly how to provoke you, they can pull your strings whenever they want. Silence disrupts that pattern. When you don't immediately react, people can't easily map your emotional triggers. They don't know how far they can push. They don't know what unsettles you. You become harder to read, harder to provoke, harder to destabilize. But here's the important distinction. This is not about suppressing emotion. Suppression builds pressure. It leaks out later in unhealthy ways. This is about mastering expression. You can feel anger, you can feel hurt, you can feel misunderstood. Emotional discipline does not mean emotional numbness. It means you don't perform every feeling the moment it appears. The calm man still experiences everything internally. His heart still speeds up. His thoughts still react. But he inserts space between feeling and action. In that space, he chooses. He decides whether this moment deserves his energy. He decides whether this person deserves access to his emotional reaction. He decides whether speaking now strengthens or weakens his position. That pause, that small, almost invisible pause, is power. Because anyone can react. Very few can respond. Over-explaining rarely starts with logic. It starts with a hidden belief most of us never question. If they truly understood me, they would approve of me. That belief sounds innocent, even healthy. Of course we want to be understood. Of course we want connection. But underneath it is something fragile. It says, my peace depends on your agreement. So when someone hesitates, when they look confused, when they seem disappointed, we try harder. We add context. We add background. We clarify our tone. We over-communicate our intentions. We start managing their perception of us in real time. And here's the uncomfortable truth. People don't respect explanations. They respect boundaries. When you constantly justify yourself, you send a subtle message without realizing it. I need you to agree with me. And the more you need agreement, the less independent you appear. Independence is not loud. It's not aggressive. It's quiet certainty. You see this most clearly in relationships. Imagine you tell your partner, I need some alone time tonight. They look disappointed, maybe even slightly hurt. Now you feel tension. If you immediately start over-explaining, I'm not mad, I just had a long day. I promise it's not about you. I just need to recharge. You're trying to remove their discomfort. But in doing that, you slowly dilute your boundary. Your original statement was clear and healthy. The over-explaining turns it into a negotiation. Now imagine a different response. You say, calmly, I just need some quiet tonight. I'll be better tomorrow. And you leave it there. No rush to soften it. No frantic reassurance. No apology for having a need. That's self-trust. And self-trust is magnetic. It communicates something powerful. I can tolerate your reaction without abandoning myself. That's emotional stability. This connects to something Niccolò Machiavelli understood about reputation. He believed perception often shapes outcomes more than force does. A person who appears self-contained seems harder to influence. If someone looks easily shaken, they attract pressure. If someone looks internally grounded, people hesitate before pushing. Silence builds that containment. It says, without words, I am not destabilized by your response. And when people realize they can't easily shake you, something shifts. They stop testing. They stop probing. They adjust their energy. Because when you no longer chase approval, you create gravity. And gravity changes how others move around you. Now let's slow down and be careful here. Silence is powerful, but like any tool, it can be misused. This is not about stonewalling someone you love. It's not about giving the silent treatment. It's not about avoiding accountability or dodging hard conversations. Strategic silence is not emotional withdrawal. It's the refusal to perform insecurity. There are moments when explanation is necessary, when clarity is kindness, when speaking up prevents harm, confusion, or resentment. But those moments are chosen calmly, not triggered, not rushed, not fueled by fear. Strategic silence means you don't respond immediately when someone provokes you. You don't defend yourself against every rumor floating around. You don't correct every misunderstanding about your life. You don't chase approval from people committed to misunderstanding you. You decide what deserves your energy. Imagine this. You're in a group setting, maybe at work, maybe with extended family. Someone criticizes you publicly. They exaggerate something you said. Maybe they twist your words slightly. Maybe they even lie. Your heart jumps. Your mind screams, correct them, fix it, set the record straight. And sometimes, yes, correction is necessary. But sometimes responding instantly gives the accusation oxygen. It amplifies it. It turns a passing comment into a full debate. When you respond emotionally, you signal that the comment hit you. When you pause instead, something different happens. Silence forces everyone in the room to sit with uncertainty. And uncertainty makes people think. Observers begin asking themselves, was that criticism actually fair? They start forming their own conclusions instead of just watching you defend yourself. Meanwhile, your accuser often expects a reaction. They expect tension. They expect pushback. Sometimes, whether consciously or not, they want the emotional spark. When it doesn't come, they feel it. The absence of reaction unsettles them. Because many confrontations are not purely about truth. They're about control. Control of the narrative. Control of the emotional temperature. Control of your state. When you stay calm and refuse to perform defensiveness, you send a clear message without raising your voice. You don't get to dictate my emotional state. That message shifts the dynamic instantly. You're no longer reacting inside their frame. You're standing inside your own. And here's the deeper truth. When you don't jump to defend yourself, you demonstrate something rare: internal stability. You trust that your character will speak over time. You trust that not every accusation requires your immediate participation. You trust that silence can sometimes protect your power more than argument ever could. Strategic silence is not weakness. It is delayed response. It is emotional containment. It is choosing long-term strength over short-term relief. And in a world where everyone reacts instantly, the person who can pause becomes unpredictable. And unpredictability, handled calmly, is influence. So what does this actually look like in real life? Not in theory, not in philosophy, in everyday moments. It looks like a man who doesn't rush to explain why he chose his career path, even when relatives question it at Thanksgiving. He doesn't build a PowerPoint presentation to justify his life. He smiles. He nods. He lets the results speak over time. It looks like someone who doesn't argue endlessly online with strangers who are committed to misunderstanding him. He understands that not every opinion deserves a counter-argument. It looks like a man who doesn't defend every decision to extended family, co-workers, or acquaintances who feel entitled to explanations. And when he's misunderstood, he doesn't panic. He listens more than he speaks. He observes more than he reacts. He lets people reveal themselves, because silence creates space. And in that space, people show you exactly who they are. When you stop interrupting, when you stop correcting, when you stop over-explaining, you start noticing things. You notice who gets uncomfortable in silence. You notice who tries to provoke you. You notice who respects your boundaries and who tests them. The calm man learns faster because he talks less. While others are busy defending themselves, he's studying the room. He sees insecurity disguised as aggression. He sees manipulation hidden inside concern. He sees who is confident and who is competing. That is strategic advantage. This is something Niccolò Machiavelli understood deeply. He believed that understanding human nature was the foundation of influence. And human nature reveals itself most clearly when you stop filling every gap with words. When you stop rushing to rescue your image. When you stop performing for approval. Here's the final truth. Silence is not about hiding. It's about sovereignty. It's about owning your internal world so completely that external reactions don't dictate your behavior. When someone doubts you, you don't crumble. When someone criticizes you, you don't spiral. When someone misunderstands you, you don't chase them down for clarity. You evaluate. You decide. You act, or you don't. And when you reach that level of internal stability, something shifts. You no longer feel the constant urge to prove, to justify, to defend every detail of your existence. You speak when necessary. You clarify when it's wise. You respond when it serves the moment. But you never explain from fear. And that changes everything. Because the moment you stop chasing understanding, people start sensing your self-trust. Ironically, that's when respect increases. So the next time someone misunderstands you, pause. Notice the urge to explain. Feel the discomfort. Breathe through it. Then ask yourself, does this moment truly require words? Or would silence protect your power better? The calm man never explains himself, not because he has nothing to say, but because he understands that not every challenge deserves access to his energy. And sometimes, the most powerful statement you can make is none at all. Before you leave, sit with this for a moment. You don't have to explain every choice. You don't have to defend every opinion. You don't have to correct every misunderstanding. Peace is not found in convincing everyone. It's found in knowing who you are without their approval. The next time you feel that pressure to over-explain, pause. Breathe. Let the silence stretch. Notice how powerful it feels not to react. Because real strength isn't loud. It's steady. And sometimes the strongest move you can make is trusting that your life speaks louder than your words ever could.